know me very well. I always make it a point to talk to the candidates who are running for my neck of the woods, going back to 2006 with Lou Wallace, and then going towards Joe Tabersack, and after Joe Tabersack was David Arconti, and now David Arconti decided to step down and leave this seat open for the first time in a quite a while. And now for the Democrats, we have Farley Santos, Danbury resident, current city councilman, former Board of Education member, and decided to throw his hat in the race for the big 109. So, Farley, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. And tell me a little bit about yourself, real quick.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the issues and discuss me a little bit with you. My family immigrated to the United States when I was 7 years old. I've been in Danbury ever since the second grade. Product of Danbury Public Schools, Haystown Avenue, King Street before that. We moved around a little bit, Broadview Middle School, and then I went to Henry Abbott Technical High School, where I graduated with a high school diploma and a carpentry certificate as well. That was right around the time when the 2007 to 2008 economic recession happened. And so, that was a tough time, but tough for my family. My mother had had a stroke right after I graduated high school. And so I had to get to work. I couldn't attend school, college, which I had enrolled at Naugatuck Valley Community College here in Danbury. And I just been working ever since. Today, I am Vice President, Community Development Manager, and Bank Ambassador at Savings Bank of Danbury. I absolutely love what I do because it's connecting with people in our community on a day-to-day basis. My wife is born and raised in Danbury, product of Danbury Public Schools as well, Danbury High School graduate. She and I decided that we wanted to settle here in Danbury because this is what we knew. It's a community that we love. She comes from a family with a lot of ties to the community. Her grandfather was president of the Portuguese Cultural Center for a little while there, and the family's done a lot of community work. And so we both came to the perspective of we want to help our community, be part of our community. And when our daughter was born, that changed our lives. Every parent knows that their child changes their life and their priorities. And what I realized while working at the bank, we were incentivized to volunteer, give back to our community. And I became a mentor with the Danbury Students and Business Connection. I was a volunteer teacher with Junior Achievement of Greater Fairfield County. And as I was going into the public schools, they were not the same public schools that Kathleen and I benefited from when we were students. What I would see is students at the end of a hallway behind a curtain. That was a makeshift classroom, or like arts on carts, right? Or a closet being used for an ESL classroom. And just the overcrowding issues, you could just see they're bursting at the seams, and you'd really have to be in the schools to know that. And so with that came the opportunity to run for the Board of Education. I filled a vacancy in 2017. I ran second highest vote getter on the ticket that year. And quickly I realized that a lot of the issues that were happening within the Board of Education were the lack of funding that has been pronounced, I would say, in the last couple of decades here in Danbury. And it's just culminated to where it is at the moment. So some of that comes from the city council. And I said, you know what, we need more advocates on the city council. Folks like Bob Tabersack, were there, but we need more people advocating for our public schools. And I filled a vacancy from, very well, my friend and yours, Tom Sadi, who resigned. Tom's been my mentor. Partly why I've got involved is because of Tom. But I filled the vacancy in the 4th Ward and been reelected twice now to that position. I know we're going to get into the nitty gritty there, but that's just a little bit about me for now.
All right. Well, look, it's you got quite the resume. You're been very active in the area. I've been following you around for quite some time, and from Board of Ed to City Council, and now state rep. That's a big step from from Board of Ed to state rep in such a short amount of time.
Sure.
let me just get into your feelings about running for state rep.
Yeah.
This is your first time running for statewide office. What are the differences that you see right now running for state representative as opposed to running for city council? Because at city council, you only covered like the fourth ward.
Mhm.
And the 109th, as you know, is majority third ward with a slice of the fourth.
Right.
So there's different dynamics between each one of the different wards in Danbury. So just briefly tell me, what do you feel are some of the differences between running for local office and then running for state office?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you both, right? The differences and the similarities. As a candidate for state rep, obviously you're talking to more people, right? And you've known me for quite some time. In fact, I think back in 2017, I was your MVP for the campaign season. I don't do
Nice.
anything halfway, right? So, if I'm going to put my name on the ballot, I'm not just going to be there to be just a spot filler, right? We've talked to 5,500 attempts to talk to people in our district. A lot of that has been a handful of very good volunteers that we have with our campaign, but I'm out there every weekend and every night as that I can during the week since the early summer. And the differences that I have found are that obviously every area, I would say a general area, will have their own issues that are impacting them. And as we know, the 109th district is primarily the lake. And I know we're going to get into discussing lake issues in a little while, but that's mainly the difference. I'm also not taking a very much different approach to campaigning than I did for the city council. Last year, when I ran for the city council with Councilman Joe Britton, we knocked our district 4 times. We went every single door. And now we are going through the 109th district a second time. I'm sure you've gotten, the first time I knocked on your door, your daughter came to the door, and I know you've spoken to another volunteer of our campaign. But that's the kind of work ethic that I have. It's to get things done and do it to the best of my ability and give 110%. But so there's a lot of similarities, honestly, when running for a statewide office than when running for the city council. Now, the difference lies is that you're dealing with a lot more issues. You're dealing with an array of issues, and on the state level, you may even have a little more impact, obviously, than you do on the city council. Most people, when you're talking city council, they care about education, they care about their roads, they care about whatever issue is happening around their neighborhood. For instance, in the fourth ward was the waste transfer station, which has been something that has been discussed for over a decade now. But at the end of it, I really am enjoying these conversations because I love talking to people. I love talking, period. But I do love listening to what's on people's minds. And I think that'll make me a better state representative for them.
All right. Well, look, I think the one of the big topics that I like to talk about, there's things that are happening in the headlines, and I just like to, especially when these races in specific in districts, I
Mhm.
like to keep it right here, keep it local, because sometimes you get into this situation where how can I say it? People talk about these national issues. Meanwhile, hey, I'm in this district and I got this problem over here. Nobody's talking about this. I went to a few town hall meetings where I heard, candidates for governor just give boilerplate,
Mhm.
things, and I'm like, wait a second, why aren't you talking about our state roads here, or why aren't we talking about things that are happening in this area?
Right.
So let me just first start with the big elephant in the room, which would be education.
Mhm.
As you know very well, that education has been a big topic time after time again. I'm sure we're hearing it again right now with educational funding being an issue, ECS funding, and the charter school situation. Now, you're in a unique position here because on one side, you were on the city council and you advocated that the city should spend more money towards education. But now you're on the state side, which is quite different. And now you're talking about ECS funding. So I want to get your thoughts right now as a candidate for state representative. What are your thoughts about ECS funding? Do you think that we are getting our fair share of the money from the state? And what are your concerns? What would you do to make sure we can get as much money as possible for the funding
Right.
for taking care of these schools?
Yeah, I would say that we are not getting our fair share, and we know that, right? Um, I think that's evident by the fact that the state representatives that we have, our state delegation currently, State Senator Julie Kushner and Bob Godfrey and all, Ken Gucker, and Rahab Ali Brennan, along with David Arconti, who is currently in the seat, they've worked every year to bring more funds to Danbury for education above what's allocated by the ECS formula. What I would do as state representative is one of the first things, and I hope that this bill does come to fruition in this legislative session, would have been House Bill 5283. House Bill 5283 changes the ECS formula to take into account the district's needs in a more granular aspect, looking at the diversity factor, looking at special education needs, looking at more like social work, what we need within our schools. That bill was raised last legislative session, but it did not get through the House side and didn't get to the Senate side. That would be a bill that I would not only co-sponsor, I would be in favor of voting for it. But and it did receive backing by our current state representative, David Arconti. But that's something that would help fix the ECS formula that for honest purposes, it does not give you the amount of funds that you should have when you're a student here in Danbury. I think we need to make sure that we do rectify that so that we can get the proper funding that Danbury deserves.
I think also another issue in terms of funding in Danbury would be towards ESL. And I want to know what your opinions are with ESL because of course, we have a pretty diverse and pretty large immigrant population,
Sure.
and ECS is a big, a big factor. So, what are your thoughts on that? And how would you be able to deliver more funds for that particular purpose?
Well, being an ESL student myself, I know what the needs are like, right? And when you're going into a school and a child at my age, at 7 years old, did not speak the language, you do need the resources to be able to learn how to speak the language. And as most people will say, I don't speak with an accent today. Well, that's because I had excellent teachers in Danbury Public Schools who helped me speak the way that I do today, helped me learn English the way that I know it today. So we need to take those needs into consideration. Absolutely. We need to make sure that that's part of what is weighted when we're looking at the ECS formula. House Bill 5283, which I hope becomes House Bill number 1, does take that need, the diversity factor in the district into account.
All right, and let's just jump to charter schools real quick and just get it out of the way so we can go on to other stuff here. Um, what obviously that you have been steadfast in your position towards charter schools on a local level, but now you're on a state level, and I just want to know your opinions on charter schools. Have they been changed, or do you still oppose charter schools as an
Well,
option for
I
residents?
don't think that they have changed. Here's what my opinion on it is, right? As a first-term legislator, I want to listen to my constituents, every single one of them, to know what's on their mind and to be able to best represent them. I can tell you we've made 5,500 attempts at the doors. Not one of them have been topic of conversation has been charter schools. No one's asking about them. None of my constituents have asked me, except for you now, right? So I appreciate that very much. Look, I think there's some questions that have to be answered when it comes to the charter schools in Danbury. I've been following the progress of this ever since my time on the Board of Education. When I met with the Commissioner of Education at that time, and Brooklyn Prospect Charter was the one that had received the charter to open in Danbury. They've now pulled out, and there's a new company. They have some hurdles that they have to go through before it could even be a part of fruition here. They've got to receive their charter. They got to go to the Department of Education and get that. But look, if there's funding there in the future, I don't know, that it's up to the governor at that point. But my position is I'm a public school advocate. It's what got me involved in the first place. I want to make sure that our public schools here in Danbury, our actual public schools, get all the funding that they need so that our children can thrive. And I'm not going to support anything that takes a dollar away from our public schools. There's a lot of questions at the moment as to how much money would be moved from our public schools to charter schools if we moved students out that way. There's a report out there that says it's $10.4 million. Tell me how the Danbury Public Schools are going to be able to operate with a net loss of $10.4 million in a year when they didn't get the ask that they needed once again from the city council. And knowing, having gone to Board of Education meetings, having listened to the current superintendent say at budget ad hoc meetings on education at City Hall that, the current administration's budget did not meet the needs of the school district, and yet we've underfunded that. Not having the right resources to meet the needs of our growing population, and it continues to grow. I don't know how we take any of those resources away from that to still be able to meet the needs that we have when we're already not meeting them now.
I think that you would agree though that last year we had a local election in which this topic and the topic of funding and education was a hot button issue, and from that, the Democrats who did have the city council at the time, I'm not city council, I'm sorry, the Board of Education at the time, lost control of the Board of Education. So I'm sure that with the budget season coming up again, and I'm sure education is still the same way as it was a few years ago, as it's been over the last decade, that this topic, funding and charter, will probably rear its ugly head again next year.
Yeah,
But
it may. I can tell you though, as I was on the doors last year as well during a municipal cycle, not just within the fourth ward, I was helping the ticket outside the fourth ward. Again, not once did the topic come up regarding charter schools. People were interested in what's going on in their public schools, what's going on at my neighborhood school. Why does my child not have an art class anymore? Why does my child have to sit in a study hall in high school because there aren't enough teachers to teach math and science? Those are the issues that people were focused on. I never once did a charter school issue come to me when I knocked on the door.
all right, well then let's talk to another topic then that's happening in the 109, and that is that big giant piece of water out there called Candlewood Lake. I'm sure that you have talked to a lot of residents about concerns with the lake. I want to know from you, when you go out there and you talk to people around that area, what are you hearing in terms of concerns with Candlewood Lake, and what will you do to address those concerns if you're elected into office?
Thank you. Yeah, look, Candlewood Lake is a huge part of the 109th district, and it's a huge part for me and my family too. I grew up, we moved around a little bit in Danbury, as many middle and low income folks did. But for a majority of time, I was living on Baumforth Avenue, and I went to Haystown Avenue School. So Candlewood Lake was a short bike ride up the hill for us to go play ball, for us to go swim. So it's been an important part of my life, right? And as I knock the districts right around the lake, and I've talked to folks at length about what issues they're seeing, right? Look, people want to make sure that we keep the kind of testing and treatments for the lake that David Arconti and his predecessors have been so key in advocating for. That is something that I will make sure to do. I think folks want us to have a better relationship with the Candlewood Lake Authority, right? And we've made those inroads, made those connections, and also expand collaboration with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Why? Because those are two authorities that are key in maintaining the health and vibrancy of our lake. I think people that live around the lake also realize that it is an economic draw for the city of Danbury. So protecting our lake is vital, and it is key to ensuring that not only do we have a good place for recreation for folks who live in Danbury, but that we can also attract other people to come in Danbury. And there are some economic values to that, right? One of the things that I'm hearing a lot about are safer standards for recreational habits, right? So we've seen some accidents happen at the lake. We've seen some tragedies happen at the lake this year and the year prior. So making sure that with the Lake Authority and all the surrounding towns, that we have a good code of ethics, a good code of behavior for folks that are using and utilizing the lake is important, right? So those are the things that I'm hearing when I knock doors. Those are the issues that I love diving into. And honestly, learning from folks who are living in that area. They know about a lot more about it than I do, because I don't have a lakefront home. But those folks understand it, right? And so I'm having a blast just talking to people and listening to all these issues. Those are the ones that I will be focusing on when I'm state representative.
All right, well, let's skate off to the lake real quick and talk to another topic that I know you heard a lot about. Are roads.
Oh yeah.
You were a big advocate for taking care of roads in the fourth ward,
Mhm.
and I want to just talk a little bit about roads in general in your section of Danbury. We're talking about Newtown Road. We're talking about Route 6. What are your concerns in terms of transportational needs in Danbury, especially the roads? Because I mean, everybody knows that the roads in our area, although some are getting repaired right now, but we have a long way to go to addressing the roads and bringing them up to 21st century needs.
Correct, correct. Yeah, look, we've got 240 miles of roads in the city. Some of those are state roads that the state has to take care of, right? You're right that in my term on the city council, one of the things that I learned from my mentor, Tom Sadi, was make sure that our roads get paved, right? One of the things that Councilman Joe Britton and I have been very strong advocates for is making sure that our highly trafficked roads are the ones that are getting the attention that they need, right? Because those are the ones that most of us travel every single day. So what's the result of that, right? What's the end result? We were just able to get Old Shelter Rock Road paved, which you well know is the worst half mile of road in Danbury. For too long, it was neglected, and working with and advocating with the neighborhood, folks that live in that area, folks who traffic the area, who use it for their commute, we were able to get that road paved along with Fleetwood Drive as well. Newtown Road has seen significant improvement. That's state related, right? And during that time frame, I've kept in touch with the foreman on the job from the Department of Transportation as well to make sure that we are keeping track of what's happening and also informing our constituents. I'm very, very passionate about making sure that our constituents know what we're doing and what's happening. So we saw a widening of Newtown Road. We've seen the median being put in. Some traffic and safety enhancements were brought in, but Danbury in general hasn't kept up with that need. And think about it, we haven't had an actual true traffic plan in over 25 years in Danbury that would pinpoint where the hot spots are, where we need to focus on, where traffic flow should be changed to make it easier for people to get to where they need to go. Look, as a state representative, I'm not just going to be looking at the roads here in Danbury, though they're very, very important. We want to look at 84 as well, right? Many of us get on 84 to go to work every day. Let's make sure that we have a highway that is the way that we should have it, right? The way that would make it easier for us to get to from point A to point B without having to sit in traffic all the time. That's been a struggle. We all know it's been a long time coming in Danbury that, and in this area that we need improvements to 84 because we've all been stuck in traffic, either going to Hartford or coming back. I know I'll be stuck in that traffic as well when I'm state representative. But we need advocates, folks that know what it's like, and then can strongly advocate and work with folks, collaborate with people up in Hartford to get the job done.
All right. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so we'll just go a little faster here and do a couple of shotgun questions here.
Sure.
You're in the fourth ward. Fourth ward is known for the CFW, Catholic War Veterans, the VFW. I'm
Yep.
sure you talk to a lot of vets in that area. What are your thoughts on vets concerns? Give me some of your stuff. Give me some of the feedback you've gotten from vets, and what would you do again if you were up there in the state to help them out?
Thank you for bringing up this topic. This is something I'm passionate about, and I've made a promise to folks that I've spoken with that the first committee that I would like to be assigned to as state representative would be the Veteran Affairs Committee. The reason for that is I have many friends who are veterans, folks who are Vietnam veteran. I've got a good friend of mine who's a Vietnam veteran who's 74 years old and has knocked 1,400 doors for me. Great guy. Two Afghanistan and Iraq war veterans who are leading the charge in so many different ways here in Danbury to ensure that our veterans get the kind of mental health care that they deserve, that they get the social services that they deserve, and are able to have what truly they need when they're coming back from war or coming back from conflicts and trouble spots. These folks are putting it all on the line for us, and we deserve to give back to them, right? We want to make sure that in our state we get the quality care that they deserve. We've done tremendous work under, again, I'll name them, I'm going to name drop one more time. Department of Veteran Affairs Commissioner Tom Sadi. He's done a lot of good work, but let's expand that, right? Let's make sure that every veteran gets the care they need. I'm going to be looking at every single option, but listen, I don't know everything about veterans issues. I'm going to be relying on the people who I'm talking to at the doors, my friends who I've met, the people who are doing great work locally here to ensure that our veterans are getting the kind of attention they need and deserve. I'll be listening to them to explore all options to make sure that they have the services they need.
Okay, we got about 5 more minutes here, but I want to bring up a topic that I heard when you spoke. I was at your nomination speech, and you talked about you wanted to tell people about what's called the Danbury story.
Yeah,
So why don't you tell me what is the Danbury story?
yeah. Look, I think the Danbury story, as we all know, is we all came from somewhere, but we settled here, right? Danbury story is that we are proud people. We love our community. We give back often, right? We want to be able to tell that story up in Hartford, to be able to say to folks, look, we are Danbury. We want to be heard. We're not just on the far west side of the state, and we're the city that could be. We're the city that are because of the people who live here, right? We want to tell the story of folks who are low income and middle class. Listen, my family, I know what it's like to go to wall bombs when I was 9 years old and try to ask your mother to buy yogurt and have her tell you, we can't afford it this week. We want to be able to tell that story too. Okay, because we still have a lot of that in our community. When the Alice report from the United Way tells us that now it's over 50% of our community are living in poverty standards. We need to be able to tell that story up there in Hartford and then bring those resources back here to help those folks. But the Danbury story isn't just a story of struggle. It's a story of success. If a kid like me who didn't know how to speak English, had to learn it, is able to advocate for their community, then every single child could. That every single child in our public schools deserves a 21st century education, something that the accreditation company that comes in and looked at our high school said that we are not doing at the moment. So, these are things I'm strongly passionate about. These are things that are going to make me a better advocate on the state level. I just can't wait to get up there and get my sleeves rolled and get to work and really tell that Danbury story, bring back those resources here to make Danbury even better.
All right. Well, look, real quick, you got 2 weeks until the big day. We got a couple of more minutes here, guys, about 5 more minutes here. So why don't we just touch on one more quick topic? And before that, before we go to the last topic, I just want to get if anybody wants to find out any more information about you, your platform, or anything like that, I'll give you the opportunity to sell the pitch and name drop your site.
Sure. Yep. Farley2022.com. It's very easy to find out information about me on the website. You can reach me at farley2022.com or on my cell phone, 203-297-2174. Call me directly. I'd love to have a conversation with you.
All right. And my last question is something I always ask all the candidates, especially people who are out there for the first time. how is it? Are you having a good? Are you enjoying going out there on the campaign trail and just talking to different people? Because it's a rare thing to be able to just knock on doors and find out, people in your community the way you're doing. So, give me something. Tell me something about this campaign for state rep that you haven't experienced in on a local or any other level.
Well, I have to tell you, this year has been a bit different when it comes to having conversations with people. Um, every year, you get out there and you knock doors for those of us who actually do the work. Um, and there are people who perhaps don't want to talk to you, they don't agree with you. This year's a little bit different. I think that there are a lot of folks in Danbury who have realized that some of us have done tremendous work locally or trying to do tremendous work locally. I think the national level rhetoric is starting to come into our community a little bit more, which is troubling to a lot of folks. But listen, when I get to the doors, what I'm hearing is people say, here's the problem I have. Or like I had the conversation with someone this weekend about mental health care. And I just listened to her. She's got a son who's autistic and he needed special services. And she had a hard time navigating the state system. And I wanted to hear that experience. That's the difference this year. I'm able to spend a little more time with folks because they want to actually have those conversations. That might be partly because of COVID and not being able to get in front of someone. But I love doing this, man. I do it for a living. As a community development manager, my role is to ensure that I'm getting to bank customers and non-customers and expanding what we do and the services that we provide at the bank throughout our community. It goes hand in hand with being on a door and asking folks about what issues matter to them. So it's very natural for me to have conversations with folks, and I'm loving every aspect of it.
All right, look, it's again, it really is a pleasure to talk to. I've been doing this again since 2006. It's great to talk to candidates in my neck of the woods because I always tell people, you really have to understand that if you really are interested into politics and your community and you want to make a change, forget about that stuff at the top of the ticket.
Mhm.
You got to do it right there on your local level, and that's your state representative. And so you are the first line in taking care of me on a state level. And I think people really need to understand it. Just don't think about the president and don't think about the
Right.
US senator. Think about your local guy fighting it for you on the local level.
I agree. I'll just add on to that. I agree 100%. And that's why I tell people get out and vote. The issues that matter most to you are the ones that are impacting you right away, right? What kind of schools your kids are going to, what roads you're driving on, what kind of services that you're trying to get. At some level, those folks locally, your governor, your state representative, your mayor, your city council members, they have more of an impact on that than the president does, right? So come out, vote. So important.
All right. Well, look, again, thanks a lot for your time. Hopefully, we'll see each other again before the big election day. But thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you, and best of luck.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.